and welcome back to another episode of Doctor Who in Review. And this is Nisha M, your geek mom with Diversely Geek, featuring Louis Lacow from Mind Bites Media and the Nerdy Chap. Hey guys, here to review a pretty amazing episode in my opinion. It takes you away. So I think we're gonna, if it's okay with you, we'll go straight in. Yeah. Are you guys gonna? Okay, so
I have an interesting aspect on this.
Yeah, reviews being in, because I kind of talk about that a little bit as we go along on the show. I have actually heard really great. I want to say positive feedback all the way around. Of course, everyone has some controversial thoughts on what should have been done, what could have been done differently. Do you, at least both of you, without going into too much of the story yet, do you agree that it was a good, effective, and I would say poignant episode, or something along those lines?
I think it was an okay episode, and it had its points that were really interesting, but there was a lot left to be desired, I think. And I'll go into that a little later, but yeah.
Okay. And your initial reactions, Nerdy Chap?
As far as the episode's message, I think the message is great. I think that's what makes it poignant.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it for that, but as far as some of its execution, oh my gosh, it's a mess. But yeah, we'll be talking about that. So great message, just a lot of unnecessary craziness that happens in the episode. So there you go.
Yeah. So basically, I have a little bit of like my reflection on it, and so at the very core of the episode, it takes you away. It totally ties in and taps into the inherent weird nature of Doctor Who. How Doctor Who will just reach into this universal like concept that they can just create anything they want. Anything that they can think of they can create it, and they can make it happen, make it so, and that's the way it is. And we are here, and we're going to believe that thing. So,
and that was the fun part. That was the really cool part.
That was the fun part of it. Yeah.
Where you walk into somewhere in the middle of nowhere, literally a lake in the middle of nowhere, and you find a mirror to a different galaxy, a different universe, a different dimension, whatever you want to call it. That was really cool, and it harkens back to the Christmas special from a few years ago, and I dug that so much, but there was kind of a false play that I wanted them to work a little bit more towards, and that I think that's where my dissatisfaction was as a horror fan. I was like, I wanted to see it go horror. I wanted to see it go deep and dark.
There's a lot of bait and switch.
Yeah, which maybe watching it disappointed me because I'm a horror fan and I wanted that, but I think that's where it kind of fell short, was the fact that I wanted the horror to jump out, but that's not what this episode was about. And I get where they chose what they chose, but it was truly a love letter to Stephen King, I think.
I can understand that. Wow, that didn't even dawn in my head till you just said that. So there's going to be a lot. I'm because I know all three of us. I know that we probably all saw this in completely different ways, and that we're going to probably all tap into the different parts of what we loved, didn't love, and probably definitely could have been better. I think that the show was chasing so many ideas, that those ideas wrapped around each other at times. And while it was okay, and I could actually follow it, although I did have to rewind here and again, I felt that some of the ideas were not necessary. But then again, that's been kind of a running theme. There we go, theme number one. For the entire season, there are unnecessary things that happen, but they're enjoyable. And I mean the spookiness and the monsters and the atmosphere that they create, you're expecting to get all the ooh, like you said, the horror or something along those lines, and then you get it, but then you don't. So
I think this is one of those episodes that's going to benefit from rewatching it over and over again. And I think this is one of those episodes that the more you watch it, I think the better you would understand it and get it as an episode. Because I see that already. Just honestly, it's been about 45 minutes since the last time I finished watching it. So it's like, all right, it's sinking in little by little at this point. And I'm starting to see where the story went and how I could actually enjoy it a second time more than the first.
There's a lot of layers to it. And you know how you and I talk about Lewis peeling away the layers of the onion. Yes. And the deeper you go to the layers, the more but
it hurts your eyes sometimes peeling back that onion.
It burns your eyes. That's exactly right. There are a lot of moments that I would say there were emotional for sure.
Oh my God!
With so Nerdy Chap, I know you want to jump into all of it, so you want to give us like that. What are you thinking about the atmosphere that they created and what do you feel about the chasing of the ideas and how they got to the core idea? I know, big question.
Where do you exactly want me to start? At the very beginning? Because we're going to get into spoiler territory.
No,
we always talk about that. So I think people know by now. Yeah. I think people know by now we spoil the episode. So
I would just go with an overarching, like how we both just went with an overarching thought about, hey, the foundation. I thought that there was a great foundation. I thought it was actually a beautiful foundation. And frogs. And balloons. But and I love those ideas. And I actually kind of dug that there were so many things in there, but again, you have to wrap your head around all of them and why do they make sense if they make sense. So do they make sense without maybe giving too much away?
Oh, we're gonna have to go into spoilers in this episode. Come on.
No, and that's what I'm saying. I think by now, every time we talk about spoilers, I think people who, if they've been listening to us long enough, they already know we're going to go into it. So to quote Monty Python, get on with it. With that being said, this episode, it starts off with a good premise idea of, okay, boarded up house, something's creepy, what's going on? And you find this blind girl who's living in the house. And she says something about there's a monster and it took away my dad. And you're already going to go like, okay, where's this going? Now I've kind of started my Series 11 drinking game of certain patterns we've seen over and over again. And so part of me is wondering, is the creature going to be misunderstood? And quite frankly, yes, the monster of the day, truly at the heart of this episode, is misunderstood. So if anyone's at home playing the drinking game, take a shot for me, okay? So that's step one. What you find is in the house is this mirror, and it's, yes, already been said, it's a mirror, a portal to another universe. But the in-between is called the anti-zone, which is almost kind of like a purgatory. So really, this is where religion comes into play. Ordained minister. Wonder why I'm seeing it like this. Is you have Earth, kind of like the gorge, the thing that separates the two worlds, and then the alternate universe that's being portrayed like a heaven-like existence. Oh, okay. So we're going there. The anti-zone thing is more like a purgatory, or the thing that must separate the two between existing. And this is where you find this weird alien creature guy that's living there. It's kind of talking like he's Gollum, and he has a light, which acts like a balloon. You hold like a balloon, and it's a red light. Which, of course, if you're going to honor Stephen King here, this is why I thought of the joke. They all float down here, Doctor. We all float. So, shades of it coming into play with this thing. And you found out your creature that you now need to be afraid of So let's go through our record, kids. You made us afraid of bubble wrap. You've made us afraid of all sorts, even breathing and all this other stuff. Now you've made us afraid of moths. Moths that will strip you to the
Moths are
bone.
terrifying, okay? Those things are terrifying normally. I didn't need this episode to terrify me with the stupid moths.
Moths and spiders, yay. I feel that there's an extremely strong, surreal ambiance to this entire show, and that it's actually created to have you look at reality from a massive state of alternate perspective, where it's in a state of flux and movement and flow. And that would include every viewer having the opportunity to see it exactly in a way that makes sense and is relevant to their own perspective, the way that you just described it, Nerdy Chap. It was interesting that you said that, because I actually, again, another perspective that while I didn't even totally tap into it, but I kind of got the concept that, wow, there's we have the opportunity to surround ourselves or surrender ourselves to this happiness, but we're doing it and we're sacrificing so much, because let's just face it, and I'm going there, I wanted to beat Mr. Eric so much.
Yeah. That was really messed up, and I was like, whoa, okay, we're going dark in Doctor Who. This is darker than the rest of the season so far. We're going there. Let's do this.
Well, let's give some context of who Mr. Eric is. So because where we left off is I was talking about the limbo existence with Gollum, who's like, oh, Sonic, shiny, me want Sonic.
Yeah, that would be Ribbon.
Okay. Yeah, that was Ribbon. His great name, you pulled out of the hat. I don't know. But anyway, the core, though, which is where I'm like, you could have cut that whole sequence off, honestly. You didn't have to have it. Because what we're really getting at is this other universe that's in the mirror. And to me, I couldn't help thinking of Star Trek. Because what it is an existence in which it creates kind of like a heaven-like feel. But it's not heaven. Because how do we know it's heaven-like thing? Well, not only is it all bright and shiny and happy and, lots of light, but at the same time, the dead are here. The dad, who is Mr. Eric, he leaves his blind daughter behind, already trying to get notes for Parent of the Year. Lets her think that there's a monster out there because he hooked up stereo equipment that makes the sound of a roaring noise because she's blind. She can only hear the roars, so she assumes there's a monster out there. When his real focus is that he has found in this other universe something that looks like his dead wife, the mother of his child. And so he wants to bring her back because his deeper desire is he wants to reunite his family. You can call him a schmuck as much as you want, but if you miss the core that his main thing is he's wanting to reunite his family, and this is about grief again, which, by the way, grief sprinkled throughout all of season 11, might as well drink. There you go. You have it. He's grieving the loss of his wife, and he's found this, what he thinks is his wife, but it's actually this copy being created by this universe thing. So sure, he's a jerk for leaving he's a jerk for leaving the blind daughter behind. He's a jerk for trying to make even don't worry, she'll be okay, she's got food and stuff like that, I'm here with mom. He's a jerk. Great. And we can all bash on single fathers in this aspect, because I've already heard from some groups going like, this episode makes single dads look bad. It's all part of this, feminist rhetoric politic. Yeah. That aside, let's get into what is his heart. He's a man grieving. And who's the other one who's grieving, who also gets to meet a dead family member who they love dearly? Graham runs into Grace.
Yeah.
Grace has returned. What the frick?
Okay, so hang on now. We have a very special guest jumping in real quick. Yeah, no, my other half, and that would be Joe from Diversely Geek. And
And by the way, I want to say I don't mean what the frick as in this is a wrong choice. I mean mind blown. Oh my God, he's run into Grace.
yeah.
Let's see where this goes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Personally, I haven't seen anything negative at all about
Yeah, me neither.
like in any way, shape, or form about single fathers whatsoever. Actually, there's hardly been anything said about Eric because it kind of gets like
His
lost
grief.
in translation in terms of not even translation. It just kind of gets swept under the rug in terms of the ultimate theme and message of the episode, which is grief. And for people who have gone through grief, they won't actually understand the depth of the episode as much. I mean, that's just really what it is. But in terms
And that's why I'm saying it has a great message. It's just its execution is kind of flawed on how to get there.
again, subjective, definitely.
Very.
Because personally, I watched the episode 3 times already, and I really enjoy it. I think that there's a lot that can be. It's a sci-fi show. One, I don't expect the world of it, and in terms of everything that can be executed, I never thought about the horror perspective because that's not my thing. But Lewis pointed that out, and I'm like, okay, I can see that, and I could see where one would want more from it. But then I can also see that it was on the line of a lot of things. It definitely was on the line of, well, it could have crossed into horror, but it just kept on the brink of it because you started out with that boarded up house, blind girl, like a lot of everything that would be cliche. This is like a haunted house horror story. It didn't actually get there. It completely turned everything around. And then in terms of the whole, purgatory, heaven, hell situation, also could have easily gone that route. I didn't see that either. But I like that it's completely flipped around and they didn't make it seem like anything of a idealized alternate universe or anything in terms of what that mirror was. That's actually where Eric was stuck. And I think the reason that nothing is really what's the word? There's no repercussion in terms of Eric is because his daughter is the one who says, Dad, you've not been well. Since Mom died, you've not been well. Anyone who knows grief knows that it can actually do that to a person. So and yes, he made horrible parenting decisions. Doesn't matter if he's a single father or not. Doesn't matter what parent or what guardian role it would be. That's a horrible parenting decision to trap your daughter in a house and scare her and think, okay, she's fine with frozen food. But that's the point. It's a horrible parenting decision because he's very mentally not there and he's not sound.
And she says it.
In his state of mind.
She says it very clearly. Anyone
who thinks that that's just bad parenting doesn't have their, I think, perspective on correct because.
Well, not only that, but they also lose the whole perspective of what the episode stands for.
Exactly.
The episode is purgatory. I mean, that's what it represents. It's purgatory.
Yeah.
All three of these characters.
I'm not actually sure that I agree with that at all. I think it represents, it's a cosmic scaling of story of love and grief, of loneliness, of being consumed by that grief and that loneliness and that loss, but then having to find your way back to reconnect to what you still have in your life. And along the way in that journey, you're going to face that mirror 1,000 to 1,000,000 times and see a different story in front of you. And then you have to figure out which of those stories is your reality and is the right one for you. And if you wanted to, there you go, guys.
That's what I was getting at with the whole purgatory thing. Because it's your own purgatory that you create because you are trying to deal with this grief in a way that you only know how to deal with. And this is a thing that goes back to guys, honestly, in general. Guys don't know how to deal with grief. We are not allowed. We are brought up in such a way that we are told that actually having a conversation, showing our weakness, showing our vulnerability is sin. And that's why guys hide their emotions and repress themselves and then fall into this type of fallacy and this fake Mox universe that we look at ourselves in the mirror and we just drift off into a fantasy world, which is what this episode is. Because notice both the characters, both of them were guys. It was Graham and him that fell victim to this universe, because this is what guys do. We create a universe to deal with situations and be able to understand it.
I think that's where I see it as a very subjective episode. Like, I think the entirety of the episode is subjective to each person's like experience
like I said,
with grief and emotion.
Right, exactly.
Because the first time I watched it through, I was like, oh, okay, just an episode of Doctor Who. Interesting choices. Odd. This is different and weird, but okay, pretty well written. Cool shots. And the second time I watched it through, I'm like, okay, grief and more of a personal touch to it. The third time watching it through, it's like, okay, I could see some of these different themes here. And mind you, I didn't watch it over to look at it more in depth. I just happened to watch it over, not really intentionally. And I really think that it is a subjective thing, because, like, I kind of put myself in the standpoint of the Doctor, where I think that the Doctor in this episode can come off as very cold, but they're not. It's a very objective standpoint that the Doctor takes to say, okay, to look at everything very rationally. And even Graham is emotional, and he does, and it does affect him, obviously. I mean, it's Grace, but he still has his distance. I think that the reason we see Eric, like, I was annoyed, with Eric, but I was also like, this dude is completely ill. Like, mentally, he was consumed, and I that's where I see it as, okay, like, that can be where you guys are coming in and calling it like the purgatory, because it could be, definitely, like, it kind of reminds me of like what dreams may come then, when you see it that way. In terms of how right. He's done that, because in no other rational way would any guardian, leave his daughter like he did.
Terrified, mind you.
Yeah. But I mean, in terms of in terms of the whole purgatory, I see it, that's where I can see it. But again, I think it's completely subjective. For me, my subjective viewpoint on the episode was the grief that was riddled throughout it, and that it just honestly, I thought it was Doctor Who also trying to do a mini like horror take, but not go horror, and then.
That's where I was disappointed. That's my disappointment level. But honestly, the more that we've talked about it and the more that we've had this conversation, the higher my score goes for this episode. And like I said at the beginning, I think honestly, this is going to benefit from rewatching this and enjoying it a second time.
And this discussion. Yep. Nerdy chap?
Well, what I was just going to do is just continue on about talking about what is the real thing, which is, according to the Doctor, she starts trying to figure out what's going on, and says that what the thing is this thing called the Solitrack, which is a story that was told to her by her fifth grandmother. So you get to find out that not only does the Doctor have a grandmother, but she's had at least 7 of them, which I took to mean regeneration. Some people are like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? I don't know. But I just went with it. I'm like, okay. And what it is that it was like some essential aspect that it was initially trying to be part of the universe that it has created, but every time it was trying to be part of this universe it created, that when this universe got created, it just wouldn't work. It was like multiple times of creation and always failed. And so the Solitrack itself was exiled to be its own separate universe or something, because it couldn't coexist with our universe, and has been actually on the outside. And that's what I'm saying, well, your real monster of the week is actually the Solitrack, because it's an entity, it's a consciousness, this universe that wants to know the universe, wants to know us. our side of the universe, because it was left out of the equation. And so that's why it's using the mother, it's using the image of grace to try and connect, to lure people from our universe to it, so that it may know the universe through these people. Which is why the Doctor says to the Soul Attract, to try and get it to even start to release Graham and Eric and all, is the thing doesn't want a husband. It wants someone who knows the universe. It really wants the bigger whole. It wants to be part of all of it. It wants to be part of the universe. To me, and this is why I'm saying this is theology gone wrong. So no one who's listening, don't say, "Oh, this is the gospel truth." It's not the gospel truth. That's what I'm saying. Theology gone wrong. But you can go on the idea that, where a lot of times the ministers have said that God loved us, that he sent his only son so that we can die and be with God, that we can then latch on of like, oh, the Soul Attract is like God. It's this lonely, God is lonely and wants to know us and bring us and be in a relationship with us. But the Soul Attract is not God. The Soul Attract it's a false thing. It's a false, that's why I keep saying, it's a fake heaven. Even when you see the Doctor actually gets to speak to the Soul Attract one-on-one, and the whole boards light up with light and becomes this, almost like heavenly hallway, it's a false heaven at the end of the day. And that's, so it can't be there. And the sad thing is that a consciousness cannot coexist with us, or otherwise the universe itself gets destroyed. But it longs to know us.
Which is
much
fascinating
like
in itself, too.
Yeah. And that is incredibly fascinating as far as a sci-fi idea. It's great to put that in there. And it's amazing. And that's where it gets into the whole thing of also the grief that Graham is experiencing, the grief that Mr. Eric is experiencing, because the core thing is they have to choose to leave. And they choose to leave because of their children.
Yep.
Ultimately, they go like, you're not the real one, and the thing, pushes them out and stuff. Especially when Graham says the key line, it's great. You are so close, but the instant you are so close to being Grace, you had me so convinced until you basically felt that Ryan could be left alone fine. She would never say that. And then boom, he gets ejected out of that alternate universe because he's like, I know you're a fake. I know you're a fraud. I don't want this.
Eric,
and so the message
didn't leave. Eric didn't leave for the sake of Hannah. Eric was expelled because the Doctor tempted the Soul Attract.
Yeah, that too.
That's sorry, but yes,
Sorry, I forgot that aspect. I was just remembering how Hannah said that the mom wasn't her mom. She's like, "You're not my mom."
So the only pure absolute,
kids know.
The pure entity in this entire episode, from the beginning to the end. Can we just step in? I'm sorry, I feel like I'm interrupting you, but I'm going to say something here. The beauty of this episode is Hannah, and the Doctor, yes, but Hannah. Can you imagine this child? First of all, this is the first time that a visually impaired actress is represented in Doctor Who, and fully represented. There's not someone playing someone who's blind. It is literally the actress who is blind and absolutely is glorious as this character. Just completely convinced in who she is. And the fortitude that she has, and the brightness and the bravery and the confidence, but her absolute steadfast belief in her father and the love that she has, to the extent that in her blindness she will go through that portal, willingly risk, no matter what there is on the other side of it, to go and find her father, who has her connection to herself, to her mother. Because she knows, and we haven't found out at this point, we don't know that she knows how mentally ill he is at this time. She knows it, and she hasn't even told them. We don't know it until later, but all of this time she has never revealed that illness to any of them, the Doctor or the companions. So she says in her mind, in her heart, I need to go protect my father. I need to find my father. and she will willingly go in there. That
Yeah.
is unbelievable. That is the heartfelt beauty of that sacrifice and that trust and that belief and that pure love is unbelievable, because that was pure love. So I feel like when she went in and she confronted the Solitrak, that the reason she could see so clearly the falseness is because she literally was not using physical eyes. She was using her pure spirit, her purity, her love.
Yeah.
And
well, that's a very religious statement thing of the blind see, but the see are blind. The ones who see are blind. The ones who are blind truly see.
That's it.
And I think that's why she was chosen on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all of you might agree. I think you all agree that the huge beauty of this is this character, and what a job she does.
Well, yeah, but what I was going to say is the core message is, in order to move forward, you have to let go of the past. That is the message of this episode. They have to let go of their grief to live their current life. Graham has to let go of, even when he says that he blames him, that feeling of blaming himself for Grace's death, that he has to forgive himself and let go for him to move forward.
That's letting go of guilt, not grief, because grief would not be something that we let go of in that moment. And we need to actually embrace our grief and the loss in order to be able to figure it out. And
move past.
The beauty is that Hannah has somehow or the other, in her youth and her purity, has been able to figure some of that out because she put someone else first. It's that both of them have to let go of their guilt. Their guilt. Yeah, right. So, and that they basically say it, because he says, I'm guilty and Eric is guilty too. So sorry about that, but yeah. But
that's the bottom line message. And when you think of this show as supposed to be, the target audience is not us. It's not adults, really. The target audience, according to Britain, is children. They look at Doctor Who as a child show. So if the target audience is children, teaching children the idea of having to let go of your guilt to be able to move forward in life and to show the strength through the character of Hannah, this blind girl, that's a great message to children. And that's why I say this episode has a great message. I love it for that. The other things with the moth, that's just Doctor Who, but trying to be being Doctor Who, like, oh, we got to have a monster here to make children cower behind the couch or something. But the whole thing of giving up your guilt and regret to move forward, and shown through the strength of Hannah, too, of knowing that's not my mom. I know what is true. And for her to fight for her father is a great message for kids.
Yep.
And that's why I'm like, this is a great episode.
It's a great episode, a message for every single person who is still a child at heart as well.
I agree. It's just, honestly, it's just the execution. Like, I think because I watched it the first time, so, like, not blasé, but just very, like, in like a bystander way. Like, I was watching it, but I wasn't like I wasn't critically watching it.
You weren't invested.
Like, I was just watching it to watch it, and I was like, okay, yeah, no, the story's good. And then only lightly was I taken out of it a bit when I was like, okay, this is kind of a lot that you're trying to throw in here. Okay, I agree that the middle part, the whole
ribbons,
ribbons, the whole the antimatter zone.
Antizone.
Antimatter.
Danger zone. Sorry, I had to.
I thought it could have been executed a lot better. It didn't need to be. I mean, we're the viewers, and we can say, well, we thought didn't even need to be in there. But then ultimately, for the story to work, it kind of did have to be in there. It's like, okay. I mean, I see where you can't really take anything out from this episode because it did everything tied to something else.
Yes, completely got it. She honed in on it immediately. She says, oh, the antizone is a buffer. Without it,
Mhm.
there would be a traumatic clash
Can I just say,
between the
Yeah.
Solar Trek
love-
and our
I love
universe.
Jasmine Khan.
Yeah.
She is. I love her almost as much as the Doctor does. Jasmine Khan, speaking my language.
Well, what
and
happens if we
Ryan.
do things differently? Perhaps reverse the polarity. Yasmin Khan, speaking my language.
Yeah, the instant I heard reverse the polarity, I went, yes, reverse the polarity of the neutron flow. Nice little drop in there. Cool, yay.
And then honestly,
yeah,
really throw in there that Ryan kind of called it from the beginning. And I know that like it kind of made him seem a little douchey at the beginning when he was just like, what if he's just gone? Like, of course we're like, well, we don't want to, we're not going to believe that, but like, he wasn't wrong. He was not wrong.
Well, he is right, but at the same time, initially he was projecting. That because he's dealing with his own issue of that his father was not in his life and abandoned him.
Oh yeah, no, it was 100% projection, but I was like, by the end of it, I was like, I wasn't wrong.
I thought that the moment where they panned to Eric, looking at the Doctor and Ryan and reading what the Doctor wrote on that wall was so significant, because in that moment he looked at that, read it, and went, oh my God, is this what my child had to suffer? At least I hoped in that moment that that's what it meant, and that his eyes were opened.
Well, bringing up, since we've talked a lot about the dad, I wanted to bring this up because I did research this. The writer of this episode, I think his name is Ed Heim or Ed Hein, I can't remember exactly, but he wrote for another BBC show called Skins.
Oh, I know Skins.
And the premise of Skins is about teenagers trying to grow up and mature despite having dysfunctional families and terrible adult role models and things like that, trying to find their way. It's kind of like Latchkey Kids.
Yep.
Is some of the things. So I mean, you definitely see that influence in this episode, that the father has made his daughter a latchkey kid. It's like he's abandoning, like, oh no, don't worry, she'll take care of herself. I need to care about, making myself good, and by hanging out with this fake mom. But to him, he thinks it's real. It's like, look, she's back, and I can bring the family back together. And yes, you can. If we want to talk about classic male things, well, the idea of wanting to fix things, tends to be us. But to me, I can't fault him as much as I go, like, I see what you were intending doing. You just did it a bad way. And in fact, actually, the premise of that show, Skins, that Ed worked on, was the whole thing of that the parents are bad, not because they're intentionally bad, but it's because the way teenagers perceive that maybe their parents are corruptive influences, even though they can't see it that way, because there's that cynicism, that skepticism, that now as a teenager, I'm like, I don't know if mom or dad has the best interest at heart and all this stuff. And so seeing that influence, I'm like, okay, I get where this writer is coming from. I get why he wrote the thing the way he did. So
I can see that. I mean, jumping off of what you just said, I think that it's kind of reflective of the episode in general. I mean, not just Eric himself, but which definitely I have watched Skins, so I mean, thinking back, I'm like, okay, yeah, I could definitely see it. Luckily, Hannah is not anything like any of the characters.
Like any of those characters,
turned out great. But it was really interesting to see how the Solar Trek kind of followed the same. It kind of followed suit. It's like, okay, I see what you were going for, but you just did it a bad way. You just went about it the wrong way.
I mean, I could see where they were going with it and all that stuff, and it was just. I didn't understand the point of having that until this discussion, until we had this conversation, and now I start seeing a little bit more of it. I didn't I wasn't brash with his character or anything like that. But honestly, the Hannah character kind of fell flat for me when I first watched the episode. But the more that you've discussed it and talked about it in this episode, the more I'm like, oh, you're right. That's very true. That's true. She kind of fell flat for me as an actress. But again, this is something that I said from the beginning. Rewatching it is going to benefit people a lot, honestly.
I actually think that makes sense.
Oh, sorry,
just really quick, because like the way I watched it was like the only person who kind of had their complete wits about them, and she was a total Gryffindor. If we put it that way, she stuck to her mindset, and that was it. Was Hannah, and it kind of made sense that she did kind of fall flat acting wise, but then again, remember, you're not having eyes to express with either. And that's
what
if
we're
you take away that
you.
perspective and you just maybe watch back her scenes without watching them visually, and and just listen to her and the passion that she has behind what she's saying.
So maybe I've learned somehow or the other, but it never occurred to me that we weren't seeing the completeness of this actress and this character, because this is a child who's been raised blind. Who is blind, she doesn't know the extent of facial expression because she's not had the ability to see it. So the fact that you're seeing almost a blunted expression is something that's actually more true to character. But you do get her smiles and you get her quirkiness here and again, and you get her angst. So she does manage to do that very well. So, again, this is me. It's so interesting. Like I said from the very beginning, this episode gives us so much that each of us are going to completely identify with and personalize different parts of what we're watching. As a viewer, it kind of gave me some throwback, and I know Richard, Nerdy Chap might be like, man, what are you saying? It gave me some throwback moments to the to Twilight Zone, because I always felt that when I was watching that, it was really based on my personalization of what they were presenting me, Yeah. And that's kind of what I was feeling. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, it does.
No, it does. I mean, I don't fault you. I'm not like at all. My if you want to hear rage, is the one thing we haven't talked about yet, which is bringing up the closing of the episode in a way, is when the doctor talks to the Solitrak. Yes. The Solitrak chooses the form of a frog because Graham had a frog necklace that was important to his relationship with Grace. So becoming a frog makes sense if it was Graham maybe talking, is some kind of connection back to Grace. But the doctor talking to a talking frog just makes me think, you can't help but people are going to go, what the? And start laughing when they see the talking frog. I couldn't help but think of South Park when, like, God revealed God's self and go like, hello, my children. And it was like this furry platypus horn amalgamation animal thing, like, I am the Lord. And you're like, really? Are you sure? So, I mean, when you see the frog, and even from an editing standpoint, when you look and see, like, the voice of Grace that's talking from the frog is not really matching the frog's lip movements. It's just, you can tell this is where BBC goes back onto its, hey, remember when we're on a budget? There you go. moment. It doesn't look great. I'm like, oh, I like this form. I am a frog. I've come to speak to you.
What now? Thought of Stephen King. I was like, I thought of the turtle from It. And I was like, alternate dimension, creature taking a different form that's supposed to be a majestic creature and all inspiring. I was like, okay, this is so Stephen King in the multiverse and all this stuff. And it was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And I honestly didn't mind that it was a frog. I really didn't. I thought it was actually very cool. I was like,
oh, so did I, yeah, very much so.
I like that. Now, also, I see your point, Nerdy Chap, where it would be more beneficial if it was something that that could have kind of changed the mind of the Doctor. But also you have to understand that at the same time, this is already the Doctor submitting to this entity.
Yeah.
So
but
Yeah,
the
well,
Doctor
I wanted to.
give in because the madness, the sheer madness
she
of
did
this
give in.
presentation of this beautiful conscious universe actually tempted the Doctor. So
She did give into it, though.
I
She
think
gave into it.
that she did, yeah.
She did give into it because if not, the creature, the entity wouldn't have released the other character. I mean, the reason that the Doctor like accepted it and like, yes, I want to join you. I want to, be your friend. She accepted
Well, the thing. Well, this is what I wanted to bring up. So when you guys when you said mention like it could have been something more connecting to the Doctor. Yeah, because I was talking with you about this prior to our doing this review. Is what would have worked better for me, but this is me, and that's why I'm saying anything in which I say I own up. That's my opinion. Is I would have loved it if it was the fifth grandmother of the Doctor, and it just so happened to be played by Carol Ann Ford. So we could have finally got Susan, but it wasn't Susan. It's Carol Ann Ford playing the grandmother, talking to the Doctor. That would have had more depth to where the Doctor would have to struggle more of going like, I want to stay, but I can't because if I do, I'll end up destroying the universe, but I miss you, Gran. And it would have been a higher temptation than, oh, look, a frog. This is neat. I've never talked with a frog
But
before.
wasn't that moment supposed to represent the Doctor actually having found that?
I don't think it had to do anything with the Doctor. I think
actually it does, right? It's about the Doctor having all of them in the Solar Tract are dealing with a guilt and the temptation of something that they've lost, and the Doctor, above all beings in existence, has lost the most, and we know that, and we watched the Doctor deal with that to the extent that the War Doctor existed, and that the entirety of every bit of universe and consciousness that we know of was destroyed and brought back again because of that guilt. So in this moment, if you brought it back in a physical manifestation of that guilt and that loss and that grief for the Doctor, yet again, when this has been a chapter, something that we've seen the Doctor having literally suffered through for 50 billion years of breaking through a glass, and a glass wall. Do you think that we should have put back a physical manifestation of any character that the Doctor had already had in the past? Did it not make sense for it to be something that was madness, like the Mad Hatter or a frog? That is what I saw.
I don't think that the Solid Track was actually taking on a form to subdue or to manifest for the Doctor. I think that the Solid Track actually chose that form because it enjoyed that form and to present himself in a friendly manner.
I agree with you, and that's what I'm saying. Because to reflect on this, the thought that being the physical manifestation had to be something to tempt the Doctor, it wouldn't be necessary because it's already been done, and we watched the Doctor already deal with this. In this moment, what this Doctor needs is joy. It's friendship. And we know that because that's what the season is about. So it made sense to me to be something that was brilliant. And maybe that's, again, just my opinion. But it made sense.
No, I see that too. You brought up a very good point that it is the friendship. And also is that entity is looking for the same thing the Doctor's looking.
That's the point. Think about the trauma that this conscious universe has existed in for as long as our universe has existed in parallel. This poor conscious universe is living in that state of traumatic isolation. Can you imagine that the Doctor is able to give it these few moments of respite, friendship, love, and caring? Wow. If also we had to think of another story that was an amazing point, is that God, I even feel it in my heart, the trauma that this poor this solar trek had to have existed in, had to have dealt with, and the loneliness that is impossible for any existing mind to have any concept of. Isn't that an incredible thing?
And I think that's what we're doing in this season is we're exploring the human emotions, and I think that's what this Doctor Who season is. It's very introspective, and it's more about the different varieties of human emotions and states of mind that we're exploring, rather than exploring all these weird, fascinating cultures and creatures and all that stuff. We're exploring that, but not as much as the other seasons. We're going introspective into ourselves, which we haven't done
Yes.
in a very long time. And
well, season 11, where Chibnall is great at is he's really great at family drama. He's really great at grief and exploration of that, and all these more inner things. Because I can't, even the sense of Hannah reconnecting with her father, Graham connecting with Ryan, etc. I can't help but go back to one of his Doctor Who episodes, which was Dinosaurs in Space, where you had Rory having the real heart of the episode is Rory reconnecting with his own dad, because him and his dad, struggle. Yeah. And that's where Chibnall rings. His endings kind of fall apart. You're going to really? Yeah, that was a rushed ending or something. A lot of the sci-fi seems to be swept to the side. What is the core of Chibnall, I guess, and as far as him being a showrunner, is the personal relationship, family dynamic stuff. And that's where we're seeing that a lot in season 11 of where, thinking back on the Saranga conundrum, where you had the brother and the sister was lying to the brother and having to come true about what her real disease is. And also her having to come to respect her brother for what he does, the way we have our masks to hide and protect ourselves, all these things. This is where Chibnall wants to go. This is where his exploration is.
Wow. Oh, this is so good. This is just, oh my God, my heart. What I was missing, there's a couple episodes where, I think we'll all agree that we didn't feel this connection, this heart-to-heart connection.
No.
And I think that we have, for the last 54 years, the reason why we have stayed very steadfast as fans. And as you said, remember that it's a show that was created for children. But 50-something years later, I'm a child of Doctor Who. Remember, I started watching it at 13.
Yep.
Well, these messages ring across regardless of age. I just bring it up of if you had to narrow, it's something that goes back to sermon techniques. If your sermon could be understood by a child, you're good. If you lose your audience and a kid can't understand it, it's not worth doing.
No,
and that's why I bring up that point.
And I'm agreeing with you, Nerdy Chap. I'm explaining to you that it makes sense, right? Because as a kid from 13 to where I am today, the connection that we've always felt to the message across how many showrunners at this point has been that we're connected to the possibility of finding our own selves, right? Finding our own identity and our relevance, and maybe a story that makes sense for our potential. Yeah. And I've made it, very known to all of you, because you know me, that I feel like a lot of my growth potential has been found through sci-fi, has been found through the science behind sci-fi, and through Doctor Who being a very important part of it. And I have to say that this was an episode that made me feel that again. And while I let out with going, there's a lot of bait and switch, I'm going to turn around and tell you that I was okay with it, because I understood one thing from it. We live life, man. Remember what I said about us standing in front of that mirror a million times and seeing a million different reflections of how we can exist? And I feel like that we live our life and we walk this path, and then we realize, well, heck, that's not the path that made any sense. Let me go around that corner, and maybe there's something else on the other side. And then you keep going, and then there's another story, and then you keep going, and then there's another story. But finally, you reach the place you're supposed to get to. So I kind of was like thinking about that from this episode, that ultimately speaking, we start with Hannah, but the story is Hannah's story. In a sense, right? And then of course the Doctor's story, but with the solo track. So, sorry, man, I just waxed very philosophical there.
and to bring up the last scene, the connection of Ryan and Graham, where you heard Ryan go, "Good job, Granddad," and he's like, "Wait, what did you call me?" He's like, "What are you, deaf old man?" You're like, because when he said Granddad, I went, "Finally, it's about time." Gosh, you've been such a jerk to him all the way through. You finally reach the point of like, you're going, "Okay, I'm gonna call you Granddad." Yay!
Yeah, that was.
I was happy in that moment. Granted, we haven't gotten the fist. I don't think there was a fist bump, but
nope, not yet.
I have to watch back the episode. But at least he acknowledged Graham as Granddad. So I'm like, all right, yay, we've made progress. So that healing.
Yeah, that was absolutely beautiful. I really thought it was absolutely beautiful. So I'm gonna just say shout out to Eleanor Walwork who played Hannah, because that's just a really beautiful, just such beauty to see relevant characters. And then BBC did do an absolutely wonderful interview with her, which we could post to our social media sites later on, that I think it would be amazing for everyone to get a chance to look at. And
to me, I know I've come off as I come off as critic because that's the way I see the role is supposed to be, of the idea of when you rewatch this episode, you got to be critical and define good things and bad things. And the bad things we've highlighted. The bad things is stuff like, to me, I thought the idea of the frogs is kind of dumb. Now we've already explored how that's not dumb. To me, the whole anti-zone may not have been needed and everything. Again, this goes back to another repeating pattern that we've seen, that in order to highlight the danger of something, in this case moth, there has to be a death. In this case, it was Ribbon. Ribbon's got to die so that we know moths are deadly. Good to know. We see these certain patterns that get repeated. Also, the misunderstood alien creature here is the Solitrack, but it is on a deeper level of just, oh my gosh, the sheer loneliness and everything. So that's why I said, in one sense, the cynic, me, can go drinking game on Doctor Who Series 11. But then the other side is, what are the deeper cores that we need to get out of these episodes that makes this beautiful? So with that, I'm going to keep my mouth silent and let you guys say your last words.
Honestly, my biggest thing is the reason I love Doctor Who or episodes like this, that it's when you watch it, you're enjoying it. You don't think it's the greatest episode, but then when you sit and you have a conversation with a group of fans of Whovians that really understand the show and see a completely different point of view, you're able to see a whole new light on an episode that you thought was okay. And then you're rating from an episode of a 6, which is what I was going to give it at the beginning, to an 8. Just from a conversation of 45 minutes and having this conversation with everybody. That's what I love about Doctor Who, is that it's not only meant for one type of person, it's meant for a wide spectrum of people. And that's why I like the comedy aspect of Doctor Who too. Because yes, we're going to go with the comedic aspect of it, because that's what Doctor Who is. I mean, it is comedy in the end, and it is sci-fi, and yes, it has its meaningful moments and its very deep moments and deep thoughts, but the undercurrent is comedy. And what better way to have real philosophical conversation than with the backdrop of comedy? Because that's where you grab people, and that's where you're able to engage. That's why we have such prolific writers and entertainers like Shakespeare was in his time. All his plays, they're drama, but they had a lot of comedy, and that's what people flock to. But
well, there's also his comedies.
well, yeah, but it had its meaningful aspects. Even his dramas had comedy, and that's what we're seeing here in Doctor Who. It's the same aspect. It's the same type of thing. We have our drama, we have our philosophical message, but it has that undercurrent of comedy. So when you see a frog, yeah, it makes you laugh, but then when you dig deeper, you're able to see all these undercurrents that are so amazing and so great.
Well, to be honest with you, the show actually is written with a lot of wonderful, refreshing, hilarious one-liners. Are you kidding me? I mean, she's not your wife. She's furniture with a pulse. What else? What did he look like? This man, no horns, one mouth, so ugly, like you, but such nice big boots. I mean, the entire thing has crazy lines like that. So, and how about the one where Ryan is looking at the mirror going, whoa, where'd we go? Wait, we'd know if we were vampires, right? I mean, come on. They're very brilliant at fitting in the comedy to lighten a moment. But at the same time, there's the gravitas is given where it needs to be, especially in this episode. So I'm agreeing with you. It's a very good mix. Very good mix.
And I think this episode, honestly, it signifies what Doctor Who represents. And we've been seeing that in this season. And I think that people lose sight of that a lot of times. And that's what I'm getting at. We have to have a conversation like this, having these conversations that go deeper than just the superficial things that you see on the screen. Exactly. Those are the conversations you need to have, because episodes like this you could delve deep into. And even the most routine episode in Doctor Who, you have undercurrents that writers put in there. And until you get another approach on it and actually start talking about it and contemplating it, you won't see those themes come out.
Absolutely. Well, that's the beauty of our show, is that you know me. You know that I'm going to push a little bit harder to be able to see things from the 360 degree, and ask you to flip it over and true to this episode, look at the mirror and see how many reflections you're going to find in there, because I like to see everything from as many different points of view as I can. But so thank you guys. I was going to go over the quote that I kind of and maybe you're going to wonder why I chose this, but then I could explain quickly and then we'll do the wrap up. Is that okay?
Yep.
Good to go. So it's going to sound interesting, because what I've taken to doing now when I'm watching the show a second run is I will write myself my favorite lines. Just because the ones that I know that are relevant to my life. So the doctor said a couple things, but the one main one I'll tell you. She had said, all my life, no, excuse me, it wasn't the doctor. It was Graham speaking to Grace. And God, I heard this in my heart. It was just in my mouth. It was, all my life, I was looking for you, then I found you, and then I was so happy. I mean, oh my God. That's pure love. Yep. And he lost that love, but that love is something I think anyone would want to have the opportunity to have had. Friends help each other face up to their problems and not hurt each other. I mean, wow, because the doctor does a lot of discussion on friendship, if you've noticed, right? It keeps coming up as a running theme. There I am again. And then the doctor and the Solitrak agree that, she says, friends forever. Now let me go, the doctor says. And then the Solitrak says, yes, and I will dream of you out there forever. Because up until this moment, the Solitrak didn't have a friendship that it could hold on to that was worthy of dreaming of. So out of its loneliness, at least it is given this moment that it can hold on to, and it's that moment of pure friendship. If again, that's another quote that just hit me. So for me, the doctor says, you are the maddest, most beautiful thing I've ever experienced. and I haven't even scratched the surface. I wish I could stay, but if either of us are going to survive, you're going to have to let me go and keep on being brilliant by yourself. And just for me, it felt like a statement of pure understanding of grief and loss. That we have this absolutely beautiful, maddeningly wonderful experience and person in our life that we have the blessing or not and the grace of having known, and we haven't even had the opportunity of understanding the amazingness of having this being in our lives. And yeah, we wish they could stay forever, but for me, having lost that person, for me to survive in my grief and my loss, I need to understand what it is to let go so that I can keep on being brilliant in the way that I'm supposed to. And I know you both understand that very well. So for me and for Joe, we'll bring it back around to the fact that it was an absolutely brilliant reflection and introspection on grief and loss, and coming to a place where we realize that through our loss we still exist, and through our loss we are still brilliant beings, and we have something to offer to the universe. And that's, I think, in the scope of things for me, that was one of the most beautiful experiences that I could have had in watching an episode. So that's my heart to heart. And I definitely really appreciated the episode and how much it made me think and made me feel. So, yay.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And honestly, these conversations, they delve deep. So if you haven't had a chance to actually listen to all the podcasts up to now of this new season, go back and listen to some of these episodes after watching these episodes, because honestly, the introspective that we go into, it's not just a superficial reflection of the episode. It's honestly delving deep into not only the psychological, the physiological, anything that we could go into that actually gives you a true reflection of what the writers were going for, or at least what we think the writers were going for. That's where you will get with Doctor Who in review. It's not just an over the top and superficial review of the episode.
No, we're very emotional, and we're very willing to reveal, I think, our emotions on here, and to be candid.
Yeah.
So that is what we wanted to be able to offer to our listeners and to Doctor Who fans, because I would hope that that's what BBC is wanting for us, is that we would all learn something and gain something positive from from what they're offering us. So, so any last thoughts, Nerdy Chap?
I think we pretty much covered it all.
Yeah,
honestly.
I agree.
Okay, so we're going to be signing off from this week's episode. And can you imagine, Lewis, there's only how many left?
It's one more, that's it.
I can't believe
well, technically two. You got to count the New Year's episode.
Yeah, we have
maybe
the New Year's
three
episode.
if they get a Christmas one real quick at the last minute. But
not sure that's happening, but I can't believe
but
that.
Definitely New Year's and last episode for this season.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Which looks exciting already, honestly.
It does. Yeah. Oh my God, it was so intriguing. And always.
Fair warning to everybody out there, they have an introspective on the episode, just kind of like an inside look on the episode, and they revealed, Chibnall revealed that each of these episodes are standalone episodes, and they do not have an overarching story. So that is revealed. So for those of you that were expecting it, don't go into this next episode expecting that it's going to wrap up all these monsters that we saw in the season. We're enjoying it as a season of Doctor Who that has independent stories and an overarching theme, which is different.
I think I created on my own, though. We have to go back to all the episodes of Doctor Who and review, Lewis, and write down every theme that I wrote, that I came up with, because there are a lot. I do at least 2 per episode, right?
Yep.
So,
Yes, you do.
and I think I tapped into some really good ones. I think they were pretty much all spot on. So let's tell everyone about our social media sites where they can reach us, and upcoming episodes. Nerdy Chap, you want to let us know a little bit about you? What's going on?
Just real simple. You can find me on Twitter @ChapNerdy, and I post the episodes in which I've been on there, so that you guys can hear us all talk and throw in your thoughts and be like, whether you think we were wrong on things or you think we were right on things, feel free to share.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you could check out anything on the Man Bites Media logo under manbitesfilm.com, and that has everything, including a connection to Diversity Geek and all the other sister companies that we work with that are all entertainment as well. And we bring different aspects and different approaches to entertainment in each of these different podcasts and YouTube shows.
Right. Wow. And as always, Diversely Geek, which is I'm Nisha, I'm your geek mom from Diversely Geek, and that was Joe, who joined us for a fast set of reflections. We are the co-founders of Diversely Geek. You can find us on diverselygeek.org, on our website, and all our social media sites on Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Google, Instagram, and goodness gracious, I'm not even naming them all. Our podcast and our YouTube, which is Diversely Geek Discusses. Our flagship episode of our podcast, Diversely Geek Discusses, which is actually called My Geek Universe, introspective, looks at how we embrace our inner geek, personal one-to-one interviews, as well as our show Brainsteam, The Science Behind, and Time and Space and Relativity. And Lewis and Man Bites Media and Diversely Geek have so much coming your way from the new year.
Oh, yes.
Whew, my goodness. Just trying to keep up with it all. So looking forward to being back with you again for next week's episode. And as always, we wish you a wonderful week. Much love, and have a great one. So signing off from Dr. Who in Review, guys. Good night.
All right.